Prosecutors announced that they are seeking the death penalty against Andrew McGann for the double murder of Clinton and Kristen Brink, based on the presence of aggravating factors in this case. McGann has been charged in what law enforcement is calling a random attack on the Brink family in Devil's Den State Park in Arkansas. According to Arkansas law, murder involving one or more listed aggravating factors makes it eligible as a capital crime. So what aggravating factors was the prosecutor talking about that apply here? So as a former prosecutor, I can tell you that one aggravating factor, according to Arkansas law, is where the murderer creates a great risk of death to someone other than the victim or causes the death of more than one person in the same criminal episode. Well, I would argue that both parts of that factor apply here. Because first, it seems indisputable that this was a double homicide. The murderer killed two people as part of the same criminal episode. The crime also created a great risk of death to the two little girls, ages 7 and 9, who were right there on this isolated hiking trail when the killer started his knife attack on their father. Their mother had to take steps to physically get them away from the killer before she returned to help her husband and then was herself murdered. Furthermore, this attack took place in broad daylight out in public during a summer weekend on a state park hiking trail. It arguably endangered all the other hikers in that park who could have also come onto the scene and also been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Other hikers saw the suspect both before and after the murders, so clearly other people were around. Another aggravating factor under Arkansas law is when the murder was committed in an especially cruel or depraved manner. If I were the prosecutor, I would most certainly argue that this factor applies here. It's hard to think of something more cruel or more depraved than to randomly and suddenly knife attack a family man right in front of his wife and two young daughters on a day when all they're doing is going out for some family time on a hike in a state park. Just think about this and think about what the dad went through. And think too about what the mom went through, the terror she clearly felt for her children and the terror she felt for her husband, and then ultimately the pain and terror that she felt for herself. And I think about these two little girls who were left alone on this hiking trail, now orphaned, knowing that something horrible had happened to both of their parents and not knowing if it was about to happen to them too. The Arkansas statute discusses a murder as being especially cruel where it is intended to cause mental anguish, meaning where victims are uncertain as to their own ultimate fate. That's the epitome of cruel and depraved, and that would seem to apply here. I think also about the hiker who came upon these girls after the attack and the effect that these murders must have had upon this person. They came upon the scene, saw the bodies, saw all the blood, and they could not have known if the attacker was still there, close by, maybe hiding. There was no cell service there, so that hiker had to get themselves and these girls out of there, and I can't imagine the kind of mental anguish they'd be feeling while also trying to be strong for these little girls. Indeed, I suspect that one of the reasons the killer chose this location is precisely because there was no cell service. The victims and this hiker who came upon the scene afterward could not call 911. They were isolated and vulnerable. Another aggravating factor is where the person previously committed another violent felony. Andrew McGann has no criminal history, at least none that we know of. I'll discuss this in my next video.